Welcome to She Lancer, Mom Entrepreneur with VoiceOver Angela. I'm your host, Angela. I'm a full-time voiceover artist and audiobook narrator, and this podcast are the audio versions of my live Q&A chats on YouTube. If you'd like to be part of the live Q&A chats, come on over to my YouTube channel, VoiceOver Angela. I'm live every Tuesday at 12 p.m. EST. We talk about voiceover, the business of voiceover, audiobooks, and so much more. Find more information on my website, voiceoverangela.com. Enjoy today's episode. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are. Thank you for joining me again for another live Q&A session here on my channel. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Angela. I am a full-time voiceover artist and audiobook narrator, and my channel is dedicated to those of you just getting started out in this wonderful world of voiceover and audiobook narration. And through this channel here on YouTube, we go through tips, tricks, techniques, things that I do every day in my own voiceover business. And then we get together in these weekly chats to have a conversation about a topic or two. Today's is a little bit different. I know the title says everything you need to know, but it really isn't an Ask Me Anything. So I can go over quite a bit, I suppose. If there's anything particular that you guys want to know about, if there's a question about equipment or where to find work, character, voice development, that kind of thing. Anything that you have a question about regarding audiobooks, because we cover quite a bit here on my channel, not just through the videos that are in my playlists, but also in these live chats. But instead of you having to wait for that particular live chat, wait a week or two for something you want to know more about, ask away. Right now is your chance. Just let's get it done, right? We don't want anything holding you guys back. But that's pretty much what the poll is about, too. If you're not new here, then you know that every week we have a new poll. And then this week's poll is, how long have you been producing audiobooks, if you have been? Again, this poll question sort of gives me an idea of where everybody's at, like experience level-wise. So I kind of know how to direct my responses and my answers. Looks like... Okay, so 33% of you said about a year to 3 years, 4% of you 4+ years. So the majority of people watching and participating in the poll were at either under a year or haven't started yet. So, okay, so that gives me a good idea. All right, I see some questions about warm-ups and things. All right, so let's go over to the comments and see what your questions are. And if you have been producing audiobooks and perhaps you have something to add, you have an insightful tip, please share. As you know, this is a community chat. I know here it's on my channel. I'm mainly the host. So if you have something to add, to gift, a little nugget to gift to everybody watching, then please do it. It is welcome. All right, so let's get over to the comments. Who was first in? Chris was first in. Hey, Chris. Chris says, you can only succeed if you start. And I think that is one of the main answers to questions I get most often is the best way to find out and to learn and grow is in the doing, right? Stop talking about it. Stop researching it. Because as you know, we can get stuck in that, say it with me, procrastinating stage. We don't want to do that. So the best way to learn and grow is in the doing, is to do it, is just to start, right? You'll answer a lot of your questions, a lot of your own questions by doing. You'll learn so much more just by doing. You got to do it, right? You can only be the best you if you focus your ambitions and do the thing. Don't wait to do. Just do it. Dwight says, good morning, Sensei, and all the Sensei-anistas. Hope your tracks are affected well and meet normalized standards. Who am I kidding? What's normal? Uh-oh, in trouble. I got sleep. Rustic Hillbilly is here. Good morning and happy birthday. Rustic Hillbilly, good to see you. Pamela's here. Good morning, Pamela. Paul is here. Good afternoon to you in the UK. Pamela says, hi, Paul. Been over there a few times in the UK. I've never been. Nope, never been to the UK. It's on my bucket list, though. Tim says, everything we need to know. Got to be a long show. Get the snacks ready. Tanya says, evening all. KJC says, good morning. I have not started yet, but I'm researching and practicing until I can. What if any vocal and other warm-ups do you do before you start your narration for the day? This is another one of those questions where it could really go whatever works for you. I know quite a few people who do tongue twisters and they'll go through like guttural noises and what is it that I'm thinking of? Like the like singers do when they go through the different ranges. For me, I go through whatever script I'm starting with. First of all, it's going to depend on what I'm recording. So if I have meditations in the queue, I'll usually do those first thing in the morning because my voice is still a little bit low because I'm just waking up and I'm not, fully, I guess, warm yet. But I generally do meditations in the morning, and then whatever script I have to do that day is what I'll use to do my warm-ups. I'll read through it a few times out loud to kind of warm up and stretch out your facial muscles and things. Some people like to go to the gym and get a full body workout before they start working for the day. It really depends on what you want to do, and what's comfortable for you, what works for you, and what it is that you're doing. Right? If you're doing something that's really high energy or something really animated, think like something to do with children or children's books, apps, video games. You probably want to warm up quite a bit because there's a lot of energy and action with those. As always, I do have... Do I still have it in here? No, I moved it out of here. That voiceover is the book. Why did I take it out of here? Or did I take it out of here? I think I did. Oh, no, I didn't. Hang on. Hold. I got it. Voiceover Voice Actor, the Extended Edition. This book here, I've talked about this book a few times. Well, here, if you guys want to see, this is what it is. But this one actually has a bunch of different warm-ups in it. So this one is pretty helpful if you need like copy or, if you're one of those people that just can't come off the cuff with something. This one is actually really, really good for many different reasons. There's like looking for an agent, how to interpret scripts. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff in here. This is a good book. Usually it's on my desk, but somehow I must have moved it. Sorry about that. Dylan says, thanks for the poll. Click. I just started. I've only been doing this for... How long have you been doing? You over a year. At least a couple. Eric is at sea. Eric's audiobook narrators go to the gym beforehand. Great job, Eric. Kat says, thank you for your videos, finding them so useful. Good. Good, I'm glad. Entertaining, at the very least. Tanya says, I use the same warm-up I use for singing and voice exercises that support vocal tract health. I've learned through singing with competitive chorus for 12 years. So a little more specificity there, Tanya. What is the vocal warm-up that you do? What is the voice exercise? If there's a way to write it out phonetically, I'm only imagining what that could be, but... Kat says, where to find work would be amazing. Of course, as we talk about a lot here on my channel, we talk about ACX quite a bit, but it is not available in every country. So for those of you watching that have never maybe heard of ACX, ACX is the arm of Amazon, where it's a platform where publishers, indie authors, and narrators or producers come together to make books or audiobooks for Audible. But again, ACX is not available in every country. They say they are working on it, making themselves available everywhere, but my experience, it's a little slow going. So if it's not available in your country, there are a bajillion different other ways of finding work that are perhaps not as, I don't want to say easy, but having a platform where you're making audiobooks where you can find all of the elements of making that audiobook in one place is relatively easy. But you can promote yourself. Social media, as I've always said, is a great way to go for connecting with authors, indie publishers of all sizes, right? Making it known who you are, what you sound like, what you do on social media, and then using the appropriate hashtags to be sure that your content is landing on the appropriate, for you pages of those people that you're looking for. That is a great way to go. Just costs you a little bit of time and imagination. It's free. But then you also have other publisher direct platforms, like you've got Ahab, you've got, if you reached out to publishers directly, a quick Google search, publishing companies, audiobook publishing companies, something of that nature, you will be presented with, I was telling you guys, like the last time I did that, there were a few dozen different publishing companies that came up. And if you went to each of these websites and did a little bit of, due diligence, some of these places will have a contact us. If you want to be considered for our roster, reach out to us. You can reach out to them and provide them with your demo, and that is another way to win work. Of course, there are the freelance marketplaces. There are the pay-to-plays, right? Namely, you've got Fiverr and Upwork are the big two for freelance marketplaces for finding audiobook work. I would say the majority of the audiobook work that I get is from Fiverr currently, or direct, people finding me on social media and reaching out to me directly. And then you've got the pay-to-plays, like, voices.com, Voice123. They're not super prevalent on these places, but you do see them from time to time. Mainly, I see them on freelance marketplaces. So I know we always talk about ACX, but ACX is just one platform amongst a sea of different opportunities for finding audiobooks. It might require a little bit more work on your part to go out and, make these connections on social media and through the publishers' websites, but worth it. For sure, to be put on rosters. Absolutely. My cup of tea says, good morning all. Glad to be here with you all. Glad you are here. Masonry Construction says, hi, Angela. Just got a 15-minute preview approved by ACX, my first audiobook. Congratulations. By the way, using Descript to record and edit made it very simple for me. I prefer the art rather than the science of recording. I've heard of Descript. I've never used it. I think, did you show me Descript once? I want to say somebody did at one point. I've heard of a few people using Descript. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's almost sort of like a DAW and positron. If they got together and had a baby, this is what it would be. But, if you find it helpful, just saying that could possibly help somebody else. So thank you for sharing, and congratulations on your first audiobook. That's exciting. Jim says, after last week, I discovered the usefulness of a spectral analyzer toward deleting plosives and other mouth noises. Jason Levine has a very good explanation of the spectral analyzer. There are a few people on YouTube. Oh my goodness, what is his name? I can't remember. Mike. Dang it, I'm gonna have to go and look that up. But there is a YouTube channel, and if you know who I'm talking about, put it in the chat. I'm sure somebody does. There's a few great YouTube channels where they talk about DAW specifically, and one of them really goes into depth on Audition specifically and using the spectral display on Audition. But to Jim's point, it is amazing for seeing breaths, mouth noise. You can actually see plosives. If we start looking at it long enough, you'll start to see words in it. It's the weirdest thing, but you do. It really helps to cut down editing time. Tanya says, Kay Hansen has some good warm-ups on YouTube. There you go, guys. Go check out Kay Hansen. Jim says, good morning. Eric says, here's my nugget. If you haven't already mentioned 50% more. This is definitely one of the things that we work on, I think, the most in my Platinum workshop, my VO workshop, is giving it 50% more. And when we say give it 50% more, if you think about having a conversation with somebody and expressing emotion. Now, people who know you may recognize the subtlety of you showing an emotion while you're talking, right? Especially if you're sitting in front of them, because you've got body language and you've got pace and tone of their voice, and then you've got, what they're actually saying. But as voice actors, we only have our voices to use to convey or express emotion, right? So, and I always use this example, but if I told you that I was happy, could you tell that I was happy just by hearing my voice? Or if I told you I was happy, could you tell that I was happy just with my voice? That was me giving it probably 100% more. But it's almost to the point where you feel silly doing it. But you have to remember, as voice actors, we sometimes have to really overdo it. We have to give that emotion so much more energy, especially if it's happiness or something else like that, to make sure that it comes through that way, that it's expressed with, audibly, because they don't have the luxury of, seeing your body language. Or, you could hear a smile, right, when you're speaking, but you really have to give it, with your face. And if you have to move around, do what you got to do. But to Eric's point, at least 50% more in expressing that emotion so it comes through that way to someone hearing you for the first time. That is definitely a good tip. Jim says, cars can't be steered if they're not moving. Very true. And on that note, I'm actually going to, after I get my son from school today, we're going to go look at a car for him. Maybe getting his first car today. It's so crazy. It's so crazy. Kat says, how do you combat croaky voice, look after voice? Are there things to avoid before recording or a regime to follow to keep it in top condition? For me, I usually record at a specific time of the day. There's always a block of time through the day where you're nice and warm, but you're not like worn out. It's usually like 10 a.m. to noon for me is like my ideal recording time because I'm warm, but I'm not worn out yet. But make sure that you're hydrated, not just during the session, but throughout the day. Make sure that you keep hydrated. If you do tend to get croaky voice, which I sometimes do, make sure that you have tea is very helpful. There is the throat coat tea that a lot of us use and swear by. It's got that, I think it's the slippery elm in it that gives it that licoricey taste and sort of coats the throat. You should be avoiding dairy, right, when you're recording, because that any kind of dairy will help to enhance mouth noise, and we don't want mouth noise. But you'd have to fight me to the death to get that coffee out of my hand. So to help combat the mouth noise, I always have water. I was a giant jug of water in here with me just to swish, every once in a while. And then we also use plugins from Isotope RX. I think they're up to RX 11 now. But the mouth declick, and we talked about these quite a bit in last week's live, but the mouth declick plugin is just gold. It's gold for helping to reduce mouth noise. There's also green apple or citrus that will help to clean out the mouth noise. A lot of people brush their teeth just prior, or maybe even periodically, just to get the goo out. But as far as keeping overall your voice health, take lots of breaks. Give yourself breaks. I always tell you guys to allow yourself an extra week or a few days when you're quoting someone how long a book is going to take you to produce. Let's just say the book realistically could take you 2 weeks to produce a book, just to throw out a number. Give yourself 3. That way you can take a day off if you need to, if you're feeling a little extra strained or tired. I mean, don't ever push yourself. Give yourself a lot of breaks, right? Even during the day in your recording sessions, take a break every couple of hours max, right? Go get up, get some exercise, drink some tea, drink some water, get hydrated, give it a rest. Give it a break, I would say. There's also those steam inhalers, which are helpful. What else? But I would say just, listening to your body is a good way to go too. If you feel like you're getting a little croaky, getting a little bit tired, take a break. Hydrate. Don't push yourself too hard. David says, hello, Angela. Hello, David. And Fritz says, I'm curious about what getting on a roster for a publisher is really like. Do they bring you work? Do you still have to audition? Is it a cure-all for not hustling? Process, procedure for them? Being on a roster, depending on the publisher, I think I'm getting ahead of myself. Hold on. Okay, so if you're on a roster, you're either going to be presented with as an option with a few other options for a client. So let's just say a publisher is sitting down with a client, and the client says, the author says, I'm looking for this kind of voice. I want a male voice, and I want it to sort of sound like this. And perhaps he can do a lot of characters. He can do accents. I want this, 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 and this. So then they'll go through their roster and find a few choices and then present those choices to the client. And if the client is interested in you, they'll either, they'll reach out to you and say, hey, this client likes your voice and this is the project. Are you available? Or you could be asked to audition so the client can hear their words in your voice and then make a decision on which of those choices they like best. Or they could do it really depends on the platform. Sometimes they'll even do here's the book we have, this is what they're looking for, everybody audition, whether all males or all females, or if they're open to both, or it really could go in either way. But the whole point of being on a roster is that you're already sort of vetted by that publishing company. And so you're a trusted resource to the client. So that is really the benefit of that, and being part of a smaller pool of people, right? A smaller pool of actors or talent to choose from, which is, ideal for the client. It is not a cure-all for hustling. You want to be on multiple rosters. You don't want to be just on one. You want to be on as many you can get on. As many as you can get on. But the process or procedure is going to differ depending on how that publishing company works, or how they do their processes and procedures. Eric says, regarding warm-ups before reading, I typically don't record until late morning or early afternoon, so by that point my voice is warm and well lubricated. I rarely narrate first thing in the morning. And I find that's generally the answer to that question is usually late morning when you're nice and warmed up and you've got all of the morning goo out. Unless I'm doing meditations, I usually do those first thing. Again, it's going to depend on what you're doing for the day. Tall Latin Mama says, good barely afternoon. I haven't started yet as I'm so stumped by the technical aspect of recording and how to fix whatever sound error detected. The technical aspect, I think, is probably one of the hardest parts of, it was for me anyway, of audiobook production because, learning character, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but there are a lot of aspects that could be a little bit time consuming, frustrating, but they're going to be different for everybody. Some people struggle more with the performance aspect, but I think more often than not, it's the technical side. And that just goes with practice, learning, the doing, as we mentioned before. Whichever DAW you have chosen, and again, your DAW is your digital audio workstation, which is where it's the software that you're recording with and editing with. Whichever one you've chosen, take the time to learn it. YouTube is a free goldmine of information. So let's just say that you chose Adobe Audition. Look up some, in that search bar for YouTube, put in there Adobe Audition audiobook editing and see what comes up. I guarantee you will find tons of videos, probably including some of my own, in there that walk you through how to do specific things, and then take some time practicing. It's the best way to learn. That way you are a little bit more self-reliant. If you're presented with a situation where, you have to, you have a specific process that you need to do, and you go, oh, okay, well, I did something similar last week and I'm going to go try to do this. And, long story short, just get in there and play with it. I don't want to sidetrack myself too much. Just get in there and play with it and see what your DAW can do. Play with all the different effects. Just record like a test track. I always recorded like a nursery rhyme, Mary Had a Little Lamb or something. And then just play with it. See what the noise reducers do and what some of the effects do. You can always undo a step or go back several steps in Adobe Audition. That's the best way to understand it. If you really wanted to, there are also courses on the specific DAWs, right? You go into Google, course or training on, Adobe Audition or whatever DAW you've chosen. And there are tons of, courses that you can find on learning that DAW as well. But don't let that part intimidate or scare you or stop you in your tracks. Because, I myself, if I had allowed any of that to happen, if I didn't push through, I never would be where I am today if I allowed any of that to stop me. You have to learn the ins and outs of what you want to do, right? You can't there's really no easy button, I'm not saying that's what you're implying, but it does take time. Anything that you want to do, any kind of business that you want to run, you have to learn all the different aspects of it. So don't get discouraged. Don't let that stop you. Just keep going. Just get in there and get your hands dirty and learn it. It does get better, easier over time. Dwight says, today is National, what is that? Ponche? Am I saying that right? Probably not. I'm on a diet for a cruise prep. Don't rub it in, Dwight. Now there is a picture you want to brainwash for. Pastries. Eric says, hi, amazing Angela and all. When looking for a book on ACX or wherever, especially if it's profit share, royalty share, or royalty share plus, what should you look for or what should you avoid? If you're looking at a royalty share book on ACX, meaning that you are only sharing in the profits that the audiobook makes, you want to make sure that you're investing your time and collaborating with an author who is invested in the success of this book, right? Again, this is also going to depend on the book size, and I don't want to say anything that's going to offend anyone, but you want to think of this as a partnership with the author. So if it is a brand new author, perhaps, and they have no other books listed, this is like their debut book, right? So they're not going to have a whole lot of reviews or anything like that. Perhaps they had just published it. Whatever book that you're being offered or that you're looking at auditioning, and if it's royalty share, I would look up that author, right? See if they have a website. See if they have an author page on Amazon. Look and see if they have any kind of social media following, if they've been talking about their book at all, right? You can even reach out to the author and ask them if they plan on, hyping up this book anymore or doing any kind of marketing for this audiobook coming out. If you as the narrator are allowed to maybe do some live recordings on social media to generate some interest and some hype in this book coming out. Ideally, you'd want to look for an author who is established. They have good reviews on the book, that the book is selling well, right? That perhaps it's in a niche or a category topic that is on trend, right? It's trending. People are interested in this sort of thing. Or if it's an evergreen topic, like an informational how-to on something, you want to look and see what the reviews are, how long it's been out. Long story short, you want to make sure that you're going to get a return on your investment of time on this royalty share book, because that is the only way that you're getting paid, is through sharing the profits of each sale of this book. So you want to make sure it's going to sell, right? So there's a few different ways to look at it. Royalty share plus is when you get a upfront fee or an upfront payment to you, plus sharing in the royalties going forward. So which way you go, if it's just going to be straight royalty share, perhaps it's a smaller book, 5 hours or less, I would say, 50,000 words-ish or less. But if it's anything more than that, I would definitely push toward royalty share plus, because as you know, those larger books could take a lot more time. But if you don't really care about all of that, you're just excited to get your first audiobook title done, there's still nothing wrong with that either. There's a lot of learning. There's a lot that you can get out of producing that first audiobook that is so much more valuable than, $1 here, $1 there. I mean, really, getting that first full production done is everything. Not only, the training that you've gone through in producing that audiobook, but then the confidence, right? And then just saying, yep, I've got a title done. This is my title, right? Sorry, let me turn notifications off. That's annoying. Let's see. What should you avoid? I would avoid, if you're able to look at the manuscript or see the book on Amazon before you audition, and perhaps the person or the username on ACX is different of that on the book itself. Let's just say the person holding the audition, their name is Jeff, and the author of the book is Amber. I might avoid that, right? I would also reach out to Amber and ask them if they are aware that their book is on ACX. Someone named Jeff is soliciting for auditions. It could be that maybe Jeff is her assistant. It very well could be, but, you could reach out and ask if you wanted to. But, use your common sense. If something's not quite lining up, then maybe you can ask the question or just avoid it altogether if it's not making sense. Spidey senses. Christine says, what donuts go good with iced cherry cordial? Oh, God. Cherry cordial chai latte? I'm just imagining what that must taste like. I would say any donut. Any donut would go good with that. KJC says, have set a goal date for starting, but practicing until then. I have AI write me a short story and I read it out loud. Thanks for the warm-up tips. You're welcome. So ChatGPT is a great tool for copy. If you need copy for a demo or for practice, or, you could have ChatGPT, you could tell it to write you a 200-word script for a, fictional company commercial, right? And then use it as the bones of your copy, and then change up some things, add in some other words or omit other words or whatever. But it's a great place to go if you just need some copy for demos and things. ChatGPT is fabulous for that. Kevin said, started auditioning in August, finished 3 since November. No money yet, hopeful soon. Good. Are these all royalty share? I'm guessing. But congratulations on this 3. That's pretty quick. 3 in just a couple months. Diane says, good morning from Oahu. Beautiful. My booth is complete, and in Audacity, my recordings are passing the ACX check, but I think my voice still sounds a bit hollow and robotic. What do you suggest I adjust in the EQ? Generally, when I hear that, don't get off track, Angela. Usually when I hear hollow, robotic, tinny, is you're using too much of a noise reducer. Because if you think about noise floor, and that's usually what we're focusing on as one of ACX's standards, is the noise floor has to be below negative 60 dB. So we usually pile on the noise reducers to control that noise floor. But in doing that, a noise reducer is focused on those low-end frequencies, which are also present in our voices. So if you're adding too much of a noise reducer, or you're cutting too much of that low end out, you're doing the same to your voice, making it sound hollow, tinny, robotic, mechanical, right? That's usually the result you'll get from too much of a noise reducer. But if I were you, Diane, I would get in touch with, if you're not part of a peer group or anything like that, then I would do that quickly and then see if you can share samples, demos with people in that group for feedback, or hire an audio engineer to help, make an effects rack that is specific to your situation and your recording space. That would be the best way to go, but that's just from what you've said. That's what it sounds like. Too much noise reducer. Jim said, Bill DeWeese's book, Get Paid Using Your Voice, was a great starter for me. There are a handful of voiceover books available on Amazon, I believe. I don't know if Bill's is. But, any information is great information. Just make sure that you're open-minded, because you will hear, if you're just starting out, you'll probably hear several different opinions and even differing opinions on things. Take all the information in, because you might hear something that doesn't really apply for you, but there was a nugget within it that did, right? Or, just take in all the information that you can get and then apply what is best for you and your situation. Because you don't have to do everything people tell you to do or not to do. Just take from that information what applies to you. Because remember, in voiceover, there's so many variables. Not every piece of advice is going to directly apply or not directly apply to you. There's just too many dang variables. So more information is better to make your own educated decisions about things, if that makes sense. Colette says, good morning, everyone. Don't forget to hit your like button. Yes. Hit that like button. And if you're watching in Team Replay, please consider subscribing. It does help. Thank you. Kristen says, good morning. I've done about 6 auditions for ACX, but haven't gotten one. I have been volunteering on LibriVox, thanks to hearing about that from Angela and others in here, and I'm really enjoying that. It's been super helpful in learning my DAW and figuring out the answers to questions I wouldn't have even known to ask. And don't get discouraged about the not winning any jobs yet with 6 auditions, just keep going, right? Don't ever take rejection personally. Just remind yourself that the authors that you're submitting auditions to have a specific sort of sound or voice or cadence or style in their head as they were writing the book. And that's just what they're looking for. You just weren't that. It doesn't mean that you suck. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be doing this. It doesn't mean anything negative about it. It has nothing to do with you personally, right? Most of the time. But if you want to know for sure, then make sure that you're getting feedback from your peers. Because, every once in a while it could be that perhaps there's some echo in your audio that you didn't know was there. It could be something like that. But more often than not, it's just you weren't the voice they were looking for. So just keep at it. Dylan says, author with a following or good social media presence. You want to narrate a book that's going to sell after all. Yeah, regarding Royalty Share Plus. Another book recommendation, The Art of Voice Acting. I found that very useful. I have another one on my shelf. I'm trying to remember what it's called. Get Paid to Use Your Voice or something like that. But it's not Bill DeWeese's. It's a similar title. Tanya says, the best starter exercise is to get a straw that's not too narrow and put it in an inch or so of water. Sing or speak through the straw for about a minute. If you get it right, your cheeks should wobble, clears mucus, and helps breath support and stamina. Look up semi-occluded vocal tract exercises, or SOVT. That sounds like fun. Yes, I'm writing it down. SOVT. I'm going to check that out. Sounds uncomfortable, though. Paul says to Kat, try Authors Republic. I get better ratio of booking to auditions than from ACX. Mason, I've mentioned Descript before. I know you have, but I remember somebody showing it to me directly. I don't remember who that was. You can edit your audio like a Word doc because it is displayed as words, but the timeline gets edited. Amazingly simple. There is a free version to try. Well, there you go. Everybody go check out Descript. Jim says, I use Spectral Analyzer as the last stage of editing. It's where I clean up what I couldn't get to before it. I have to say I'm a little concerned about, you said the last stage of editing. How many stages of editing do you have? There should be just the one pass-through. You should try to accomplish everything in editing in just one pass-through. It'll save you so much time. I remember talking to somebody once that said they go through their audio file, their recording, they go through it in the editing stage, 6 passes. They went through one time to look for mistakes. Then she went back to the start and went through it again, looking for plosives. This wasn't exactly what it was, but it was something to this effect. And then went through it again for sibilance, and then went through it again. Right? So imagine this half an hour audio file I'm no wonder it's taking you 10 hours to get, this half an hour audio track done. Get all of that done. Focus on all of that. All the editing you need to do on one pass through. Figure out how to do that with either your effects, your processes, but you need to streamline this process so, you get down to a 1-to-2 ratio instead of a 1-to-10 ratio. No wonder you're hating editing. It's just taking too much time. But try to get all of the things that you're focusing on, all of the cleanup work, all of the, a retake removal out. Try to get that all done in one pass. Kat says, thank you, Paul. Pamela says, regarding toothbrushing, stay away from toothpastes with hydrogen peroxide. Interesting. Does that enhance the mouth noise? Diane said, heads up, I attended the NAVA panel on AI, wanting to share that LibriVox is known to be a place where voices are mined for AI. Since it's free, the AI industry happily grabs your voice to train AI. Boy, boy, boy. That's disappointing. All right. Good to know. I would imagine, realistically, though, for all of you, like, alarm bells are going off. Realistically, if you are anywhere, if you are available anywhere online, your voice is available to grab, to train AI, unfortunately. It could be being done now with me on YouTube, right? Anytime that your voice is available, social media, anywhere. So it's just unfortunate that that happens. It's almost like we have to think about watermarking everything we do. Maybe at some point, my YouTubes are going to have like a beep, beep, like in the background. Imagine how annoying that's going to be. Just because people don't want to play by the rules. They have to make life miserable for everyone else. Okay, no stinking thinking. Paul says, howdy, 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 here's the donuts. Donuts. KJC says, when there are 2 or more narrators, do they record together in a studio, or are they separate narrations sent to a studio after they are done, or a live recording from different places? It could be any of those. It's going to depend on perhaps what kind of production it is. If they are able to be all in the same place, that is probably ideal. More often than not, in my experience anyway, I'll have the narrators will be on a Zoom call or a Google Meets, but they'll each be recording on their own computers, right? They'll be recording live on their own computers, but seeing each other on video, so that way they can interact with each other, reading through the lines. And then someone will have to mix those two together in post. So it really depends on how or who's doing it, but it really could be any of those. But recording it together is really the best way to go. That way you can play off each other. Jim says, on marketing, I wonder if it's a good idea to mention that you offer a real human voice, not AI. Since AI has an encroaching growth, it's not a bad idea to me. Considering that the best way to market yourself is on social media, I would think that if you're creating content that included video, which I highly recommend, that's where all the eyeballs are anyway. Right now, everybody's looking for 30-second videos or a minute-long videos that include information that they're looking for, entertainment, distraction, amusement, right? Something interesting to watch, some sort of a distraction from whatever it is they're doing. They can clearly see that you are a person and that the voice coming out of your mouth is yours. So I think in that respect, it would be a little bit obvious that you're not using AI, but I don't think that's a bad thing in places where, let's just say ACX, like a place like that, you could state, I'm 100% human, always have been, always will be, something kind of cheeky and fun. I mean, it's not a bad idea. But I think that is why also being visible and being heard at the same time is good, because it's sort of evident. This is my voice. It's coming out of my mouth. This is me, right? Nevin says, can you say no to a prospective client because you don't agree with the company's? Yes. Yes, that is the beauty of being a business owner. You don't have to take what's offered. Never. You can say no. It's your prerogative. If you want to say no for whatever reason you choose, say no. Absolutely. I do it a lot. Colette says morning goo. I know. The morning, the morning goo. Kevin said, someone asked Laurence Olivier what he did for a warm-up. Olivier turned his head, coughed, and said, I'm ready. Not everybody has that luxury, though. Dylan said, Punchki? Oh, Punchki. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Dylan. Colette says, Nevin Pesa. Absolutely. Jim says, I won't start out on a project without getting something up front. Always make them put skin in the game. For audiobooks, yes. If it is a per finished hour pay type book, I would definitely recommend getting something up front. I always say 50%. If you can't or the author won't, 30%, 25%, 40%, whatever it is. But to Jim's point, that's investment. Because if you think ne'er-do-wells, scammers, they want to get what they're needing for free. They don't want to have to pay anything, right? So if you are collecting something up front, then more often than not, that's going to be a good indicator that that is a real person. It's a real company, and they are not here just to steal your voice and run away. Plus, your time is covered if they decide they change their mind or something happens, right? And they just fall off the planet, and you don't get the other 50%, but definitely skin in the game. Diane says, approximately how many words can record in 1 hour? And that is going to be different for everybody depending on how, like, your normal narration pace. But the number used in the industry is 9,300 words. 9,300 words equates to roughly 1 hour of finished audio. That's usually the number that we use. Thank you, Dylan. Christine says Starbucks. It was amazing. Really? I don't go to Starbucks. But I bet you I could have another coffee shop recreate that. So that was a cordial cherry chai latte. Consider my peaked as interested. Kevin says, you ain't kidding about learning doing your first audiobook. I redid my first 2 books 3 times trying to get it right. Yeah, my first book, same. I think I redid a lot of it. Re-edited it a lot. But in doing that, I learned so much. Lisa says, good morning, everyone, from Alberta. Sent about 10 auditions on ACX. Got my first narration job a couple of weeks ago, royalty share, for a book that has been selling very well on Amazon. I'm loving the process. Good. I'm glad that's going well for you. Congratulations. Jim says, a parametric equalizer is a good adjuster for your sound. That's what I use. That's the EQ that I use on Adobe Audition. Because there's a lot of little points where you can adjust. You can like target and attack or reduce sibilance. You know, you can cut some of that low end sound out. You can adjust the warmth, the brightness. There's a lot you can do with that parametric equalizer once you learn how it works. So if you go in there and play with it, then you'll be a little bit more comfortable with how it works. Dwight says to Dylan, thanks for the correction. Good thing my Polish wife didn't see my spelling. So everyone, please, please, please don't tell her. Dylan says, LOL, your secret is safe with me. I'm from Michigan, and there is a huge Polish population that takes their, do I remember, punchki? Punchki? Was that it? I'm going to have to go back up. Punchki. Yay, I remembered. She can be taught. Jim says, I've heard of VO people doing 50 samples in ACX before they got a bid. Yeah, I mean, everybody's going to be different. I've seen people that 2 auditions and 2 samples and win a book job. I've seen people win a book job on their first and only audition. I've seen people put in 200 and not get a book job. It's going to be a little bit different for everyone. I think my first book was I think I had somewhere between 5 and 10 samples posted is when I got my first offer. Eric says, where can one get feedback on an audition? Well, if you're in my platinum group, then you know exactly where you can go. You can put it in our Discord and ask somebody for feedback. Or if you're in the group that's up for audition feedback for the month in my platinum group, then you can get feedback on your audition that way. If you're not part of my world, my circles, you could join or find and join Facebook groups that will allow you to do that. Not every voiceover Facebook group allows you to post demos and things like that. Mine does, the VO workshop. But you can post a demo or an audition or something and ask the group for feedback. But I recommend that you do that, especially if you're not going to get, especially if you're not going to hire an audio engineer like right out the gate, which you probably shouldn't do because you're still sort of fine-tuning your space and your equipment's going to change. You're probably going to upgrade. So I think once you're serious and you're mostly satisfied with your recording space and your equipment, that would be the time to, and you have some income coming in, that would be the time to hire an audio engineer to sort of fine-tune what you have. But if you're still like in the transition phase of sort of figuring everything out, then that I think would be the time to get feedback from your peers. So, especially if they've been in the business for a few years, their ear is a little bit more attuned to hearing echo, to hearing, too much of a noise reducer, or maybe there's sibilance or it's too bright or whatever it is. But yeah, peer feedback would be good in the beginning. M. Todd Coyne says, have completed 4 audiobooks since beginning 18 months ago, 3 royalty share and 1 $200 per finished hour, nonfiction only. Yep, I stick with nonfiction as well. That's sort of my wheelhouse. I like learning. As I'm narrating. Jim says, I do want to see if it's a usable take, then I tweak the audio. Then if I could not clean up everything, I go to Spectral. I would just leave the Spectral on and use that in that first pass. That's what I would do. Just use it as a tool, as like an always there tool. Colette says, peroxide, it bubbles when it hits your mouth and you start foaming like a mad dog. It takes a while to get rid of it. I have had lots of toothpastes that had peroxide in them. I don't ever recall foaming at the mouth like a mad dog, but I see your point. Peak Parable says, personal question, Angela, if okay. I don't know. Let's see. For you going full-time, what was the percentage breakdown of income audiobook versus other paid? Oh, gosh. I don't remember. I mean, I've been doing this in July will be 7 years. I went full-time, if you've seen my posts, 5 years ago, a couple days ago, it was my 5-year full-time anniversary. I think at the point in which I left, which I retired from employment elsewhere, at that point, it was probably a good 50-50 split. I'd have to say half of what I was doing at the time was audiobooks. And then the other half was everything else. It was video games, meditation, e-learning, documentaries, IVR, anything and everything you could think of that's not an audiobook is probably the other 50%. Yeah. If that answers your question. Trying to diversify my income potential and working out what would work well with me potentially. I have found as long as you're visible everywhere, because you can have a free profile on most of these pay-to-play sites. So if you went to Voice123, for example, you can post your profile and demos and samples and things. You just can't audition until you're a paying member, right? So your stuff is already there if and when you get let's just say you get an email saying, hey, join Voice123 today for, $100 for the year or whatever. It was a smoking deal. And you're like, heck yeah. All you have to do at that point is just upgrade your membership, right? Your stuff's already there. But I can feel myself starting to go off on another tangent. But my point is to be visible. You want to be as visible as possible. That means you want to be everywhere that you can be. So freelance marketplaces, pay to plays. If they allow you to have a free profile on there, do it. Get onto social media, create business social media accounts and start creating content. Start getting active. You have to be visible. You have to think of this as a business. You are now a CEO. You are the marketing manager. You are in charge of social media. You are now the bookkeeper. You have all these new hats. And to feed this business, you have to be visible. You have to market yourself. So get visible anywhere and everywhere that you can. And then you'll start to see which avenue is working best for you. And then whichever one of those avenues presents as a good potential income stream, then focus on that and develop that. And then once you have that down, start developing other ones, right? Jim says, I recently said no to a textbook publisher who offered $350 for a 581-page textbook. I estimated 5,800 words. Do you mean 580,000 words for a textbook? Because 5,800 words is less than an hour. But what I would do when it comes to textbooks, I think a lot of people, just a general statement, Jim, a lot of people forget that even textbooks have copyrights on them. I've had a lot of people approach me saying that I'm in college, I don't have time to read this book, I'd rather hear it audibly, would you narrate this for me? And then I have to say no, because you don't own the copyrights to it. We cannot reproduce any part of this book without the permission from the owner. So that's illegal. You can't do that. So if you are approached by a textbook publisher, I would make sure that they own the rights to that book. Right? Just mind your P's and Q's. Joy says, hello, Angela and everyone. Happy Punchki Day. Did I say that right? Although I don't think you'd want mine because I have the flu. Joy, tell your husband to keep it to himself. Cat D says, have to jump. But thank you so much for the advice. Looking forward to the next one. Good. Dwight says, Angela, have you ever redone a book that was already released and then contacted the RH with a better, newer version? If so, how long between the two finished releases? No, I have not. No, I have not done that. No, I have not done that. Dwight says, Punchkis, not Punchkis. Dylan's spelling is correct, and his phonetics is right, too, but you took the second way of saying it as the right one. LOL, am I right, Dylan? Is it Ponchkis or Punchkis? Dylan says, I always have my spectral up on my multi-view, as do I. The spectral's always there. It makes it a lot easier to see little blemishes that need to be cleaned up. That way I only go through the file once. Yeah, me too. Jim says, as usual, this has been a helpful session with all the questions, comments, and tips. Got a Zoom at 12:30. See ya. Well, it was good of you to stop by, Jim. Dwight says, Ponchkis. So Ponchkis, not Punchkis? Dang it. I'm probably going to forget it. All right. Well, I hope this was valuable information, entertaining at the very least. I will be back next week. I was kind of hoping that we'd have broader topics or broader questions asked, but if there is something, as always, if there is something specific that you guys want to know more about or talk about as a group, want some feedback on, other tips and insights from other people, whatever it is, then leave that in the comments below. These weekly chats are always based on what you guys want to know and what you guys want to talk about. So tell me what you want to talk about and we'll talk about it. But I will be back next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. So until then, use your spectral displays and practice, practice, practice. So I'll see you guys all next week. Bye. Thank you for listening to She Lancer Mom Entrepreneur with VoiceOver Angela. That's me. For more information about me, visit my website, voiceoverangela.com, or hop on over to my YouTube channel, VoiceOver Angela. Again, thanks for listening. Have a great day.